Venice. The early mortal years and the last mortal day of Fazio Corvo della Guerra. The celebration of your sister's birth. In interest of this, Fazio has seen fit to visit his family while his father is out of the house. His mother welcomed him with open arms, a hug, a kiss on both of his cheeks, before calling him into the house as he carried the bundles in his arms that he meant to gift to his sister. Modestly furnished and decorated, per the means available to your father. Your sisters come bounding into the room, each throwing their arms around you, greeting you. Fazio! Fazio! Immediately, the youngest begins to ask, "What did you bring for me?" And before long, you and your mother are sat in your respective seats, you with a glass of wine in hand, your mother with just a bit of juice, as she is not feeling fit for wine this evening due to the heat. Where outside you can occasionally hear someone shouting about some insignificant detail or another. Your mother looks up at you. Her goblet in her left hand, her right hand presses against your knee. Fazio, if you could do one thing to make your mother happy, would you please consider finding a wife?
Mother, I will try. It is not for lack of trying, I assure you, but life has been very busy of late.
Very busy. You're always very busy, Fazio.
There was always very much to be busy with, Mother.
Then you make time. There is always time for family. Your father understood that.
Mom, I'm not here now. I make time for my family.
You make time for your family when it is convenient, my son. But I would like to see you with a bambino of your own before I go.
Mamma. And Fazio would lean forward and clasp both of his mother's hands in his own. I vow to you, I will try. But I cannot swear the hearts of women who do not want their hearts swayed, he says as he leans back in his chair, his hands swishing side to side.
Ugh! She sets down her goblet and throws up her hands for an instant before waving the right hand in his direction. Where did you learn to speak in such a way? It was not from me, not your father. I never should have let him put you on those ships at such a young age. You picked up the worst habit.
He spirits away a secret smile to the side before he says, Mother, I am afraid this is not half of the bad habits you may believe I picked up.
I'm well aware of the dice.
What dice? I would never bring any dice to your home.
You do not bring them to my home, but I hear stories just like about these. She reaches in to clasp at one of the black crow feathers that you decor yourself with. Corvo della Guerra.
It is a name that the dock workers, the merchants, the patrons of the tavern call me. It is because I make more money than them.
She silences you by pressing gently the digits of her left hand to your lip, her right hand squeezing yours. Fazio, you have learned many things and are a very smart man, but you have never learned how to lie to your mother.
Maybe that is why I am a man.
Then find the woman you cannot lie to.
Aye, Mama.
She pats your knee briefly as she leans over to pick up her juice, swishing it even though it's not wine. The habit seems ingrained by her age. You will be a good father, Fazio. If you put in half as much time to your family as you do your work now, they will want for nothing. As though on cue, you hear the doors to your parents' home open. And immediately you can hear the grumbling protests of your father.
Immediately, Faccio stands and scoops up one of the presents that he had brought for his father. This one, well, it's a small box with silken ribbon and whatnot. Papa, it is so good to see you. It has been so long.
Your father stares at you for an instant, his hair showing streaks of white coming from the root, though still mostly of a charcoal black color. He's slightly on the plump side, the hair falling down by his shoulders in a straight fashion. His clothes clean, if perhaps a bit damp and slightly smelling of the harbor. He carries under his left arm a heavy book, which you know he does his numbers in. And his angular and aged face, creased with his years of worry, as well, age, stare at you with a hollow gaze. Fazio, why is it every time that I leave my home I come back to find you sneaking in?
Why is it that every time I wish to visit my home, I must sneak in under my father's nose? He says with a soft, sad expression on his face. Father, please. He takes a step forward.
What is it this time, Fazio? What is it you have to say?
Faccio straightens his back, closes his eyes and takes a deep breath. Opens them again on his father and proffers the box in his hand towards him. I come bearing gifts for you. And for my sisters, of course, but this one is for you, father.
Gift.
See.
He looks down at the box. And curling back all but his index finger, he uses his nail to pry it open to look inside.
It is a set of wax and a signet ring. Very simple one, but it was a design that Faccio had remembered seeing his father doodling away when not engrossed in his maps and the like, and proposed small family crest of his father's own design, complete with wax pellets underneath for impressing.
Pulling out the ring, Fazio's father brings it up to look at it in the light. He twists it so it reflects the light off of its golden surface before he looks back at Fazio. He throws it against Fazio's chest. I will not have the mark of my family purchased by coin made with blood. Your mother stands up immediately. Honey, please. No, I will not accept painted gifts from a merchant who deals in death, who would insult me by bringing me something that I can earn well enough on my own without blood on my hands. Is that why you give such large donations to the church, to assuage your soul? What happened to my son? My protege? You shame me.
Facio's eyes sting in his face, tears welling up behind them, still presently dry, but he's fighting them back with his own will. He turns his body away from his father, just in case they fall, pinches the bridge of his nose, turns back to his father resolutely and says, "The boy that you loved grew up into the man that you raised him to be, father." And he sets down the box and begins walking toward the door.
As you place your hand on the handle of the door, you feel his hand on your shoulder. For an instant, hope blossoms in your chest. But the moment you look at his face, you curse yourself for should have known better. His foot coming down on that blossom of hope. This is not the man I raised.
The man you had raised, then, by other men. And Faccio would keep trying to leave.
At this point, he doesn't stop you. Instead, he slaps you across the back, shouting, "Get out of my home! Get out of my home!"
He opens the door and steps out, but just before shutting it behind him, turns back and says, "I hope to see you again, father. Perhaps we'll meet next to God, side by side."
Your father slams the door in your face, not even deigning you with a response. And as you begin to trot away, you hear the door open again. You wonder who it'll be this time. Your mother, your sisters running after you to give you some consolation. Instead, you see the box that you had given your father, ring included, flung outside to the door. You can hear your mother shouting at him briefly before it's closed again. The scene changes, and time distorts. A month passes. As within that time, we rejoined Fazio. This time, leaving the Arsenal, the shipyard of the Venetian Republic. He strides from it, moving up the winding staircase of the Rialto Bridge, overlooking the black night waters of Venice. He pauses, catching briefly some of the late ships and gondolas which move through the water, being pushed by the barge poles. From his side, he can hear the approach of footsteps on the stone. His eyes glance briefly and then back to the water before he glances back again, recognizing the man approaching. Someone he has become acquainted with over the past month. Romualdo, an Italian man, if not Venetian. He, by his accent, doesn't originate from very far, yet you can never quite place it. It always seems somewhat outdated, as if he grew up in a small village where the language hasn't quite caught up with the rest of Italy. He inclines his head slightly to greeting.
"Signore Romualdo, buonasera."
Buonasera, Faccio. What brings you out to the Arsenal at this late hour?
Truth be told, it is this bridge this port, these docks, these waters that I feel most comfort.
The place where a man has made his fortune and has defined himself as a man. That is often the place a man will feel most at home.
And not at home, signore. Or is it that you say a man chooses his home throughout his life?
A good question. He walks closer, entering into the edge of one of the large torches. Though he doesn't get much closer. His right hand bearing a signet ring of the old Lupa of Romulus, resting on his pinky finger as he looks briefly to the water. You have been very interesting to meet, Fazio. I do not regret coming to Venice and making your acquaintance.
I am flattered, signore. It has been a pleasure of mine to meet you as well.
Ben. He glances to you briefly. Fazio, what would you say is the most important part of the world? The thing which defines it, which shapes it for its future?
In my own experience, well, I am wont to say the will of God, but in this world, the things I have done, it seems to be a man's will instead of that of the Heavenly Father.
He smiled. A good answer, and partly true. However, it is man that defines and shapes the world in which we all live. If one thing should never be neglected in this world, it is that of society as made by man. And yet, what is the most dangerous thing to a society? What is the most dangerous thing to the crew of a ship? He gestures to you to answer.
Complacency, neglecting the hazards, the everyday dangers, letting them fester unattended.
Ah, Fazio, you answered too quickly. He smiles. Think of it a moment, Minami. Not the external. What is the most dangerous thing to allow to fester in any society or crew?
If it is not an external threat, could you mean the horrors of a man's mind, signore? Or his regrets, his guilt?
A poor leader. But more than anything, disunity.
Ah, indeed.
Something that you have had some experience with in your own life. You have never said as much, but I have my suspicion that you know of what I speak firsthand.
Indeed. I take it that you are of the same mind of me as I say. A man recognizes his fellow brothers who have shared experience, no?
Ben, signore. We are truly of similar mind. Ben. He begins to pace again, moving along the edge of the torchlight. his hand brought up wistfully, speaking in the fashion of many Italians, with a great deal of gesticulation to emphasize his wrist roll. Fazio, I have come to admire the man that I see before me. In fact, I see much potential in you for your future. A future in which our minds might align. Tell me, Fazio. He paused. Do you respect me?
Of course, Signore. You are a man of, it appears to me, great distinction and, well, cognitive ability.
Thank you. But do you respect me enough to trust me to act as your patron?
A patron, messer?
Yes, patron. As I said, I see a great deal of potential in Fazio. Potential for things far beyond the scope of those that you have done thus far. And your reputation, well earned, I might add. He wriggles his finger. Though I may have inquired, as to be sure, as the Corvo della Guerra. That is such a reputation as would serve you well, so long as it continues to suit the man who carries it.
It appears you have found me out, Signore. Indeed, I am il Corvo della Guerra, but... To me, the deeds that earned me such a name are more important than the reputation itself. That I can... I suppose it is comfortable to hear this name whispered or chanted when I enter a taverna or passing down the street. It is a reflection of my actions, truly, but it is too theatrical, I think. Almost as if my accomplishments are that of not a mortal man, but instead some hero in mythology, some Hercules or some such.
You make an excellent case for yourself, Fazio. If you cared only for your reputation, not for the deeds which make it deserving to be mentioned, that would be a problem. He reaches out and clasps your chin, his fingers cold as ice.
Immediately, Faccio is startled and tries to pull away. Like, push his wrist off, because what the fuck?
No need to be so afraid. You have all of the mind that I require in a man such as you to offer, patron. Would you accept such from me, Fazio? Would you allow me to be your patron? To guide you to greater things?
There's suspicion in Faccio's eyes as he meets Romualdo's. The man still holding his jaw in an icy grip. But there is something about him. Sì, Messere, I would.
Ben. He releases, his hand extending past you to grip the torch, which he pulls down from the scone and chucks off the bridge into the water, where it extinguishes. Quick hiss of the flames going out before the splash of the water. By the time you look back at him, you can see two large canines extending from within his mouth as he grabs you into his arm in human strength. Welcome, my child. And with that, his fangs dig into your throat. We move to the next scene. Mere nights after your embrace, now sharing home with your sire, you are only becoming vaguely aware as you open your eyes, still getting accustomed to the bizarre sense of waking at night exclusively and being fully in control of your senses. No grogginess of wake. Yet the sensation of wakedness is shaken from you, as you yourself feel shaken. Your sire, Romualdo Lupino, is violently shaking at your shoulder. Facio, get up! We must leave now!
Si, Messer, what is the issue? He says as he sits up and gets out of bed.
They are coming. We must go now before they... You hear the crash of glass shattering. You hear shouts of angered men and doors breaking inward. Your sire hisses. Above. We'll go to the roofs. Come, Facio.
Si.
The moment you rush into the hallway, you can see men barging in. The kind of rough sailors that you have traveled with before, but more concerningly, guardsmen of the city itself. Some merely private swords belonging to wealthy merchant families. They pour into the house with swords in hand, some with spears attempting to catch the both of you. Fire consumes the walls of your home as it streaks upward, licking at the ceiling with hot tongues. Your sire knocks one of the men aside, bones crunching under the swat of his hand as he knocks the men aside. Run, Facio! Trust in your strength!
Si, Messer. And he does so.
Men close in, attempting to bar your path. You throw off one of them easily as he slaps against the wall so hard he rebounds off of it, his helmet falling to the wayside. The other stabs under your arm, blocking you off with a spear.
I grab the spear and just using brute strength, using it braced against my body and against his, shove him to the side and just keep going.
The spear breaks. To your horror, it shatters with such ease under your strength that you hardly even recognize any further. Your hands still propelling forward, you shove him back, one hand against his face, as you hear a crack somewhere within his body as he lets out a "Ugh!" and collapses forward, rolling down the stairs. Above, you can hear crashing glass as it's broken. Fire consumes up the ways as your sire at the top of the stairs shoves aside a group of men as he calls, Facio, hurry!
He sprints.
Sprinting up the stairs, you see as from the windows this black shape begins to intrude, the lights extinguishing themselves as he begins to enter its very premises. His body, like living shadow, coils through the windows as he comes after you. Your sire knocks aside various men attempting to apprehend you. You can hear them shout, "Cease! Come back! Get them! What are you waiting for?" You hear a man scream as effortlessly your sire clasps him by the throat and crushes his windpipe.
My sire wants me to escape, yes? Or does he want me to help him fight?
He wants you to escape. Everything he has done thus far is to knock people out of the way, thrust them aside, or dispatch them quickly as he attempts to flee up the next flight of stairs to the roof.
Then I go up to the roof ahead of him, trying to clear the way for him to join me.
Rushing past him between two of the guards, you slide, twisting your body between them, even as they try to swing, though without room for their swords. They end up catching on each other. Leaping up the stairs, 2 steps at a time, you find yourself once again face to face with that black figure and more men that have descended from the rooftop, engaging you. You throw one to the side as you bash your hand down on top of the helmet of another, denting it inward as he staggers back, dropping his spear. The shadow figure smashes you to the wall. Your sire, darting up the stairs, engages with the shadow as more men descend, fire consuming the roof. The beast inside of you panics as you hear the creak and crack of timbers as the front of your house collapses on itself, trapping you in the rubble as fire and stone burn and crush your flesh before you feel a sudden cold relief wash over you. And all goes black. Over a century passes, with his body mangled and horribly wounded. Facio was lost beneath the waves of Venice, until the stirring of the waters above blood caused him to stir within his mind. The voice of Romualdo calling to him, "Facio, Facio, come to me. Come to Bologna, Facio." His eyes opening for the first time in over a century, Facio stares up within the murk of the water. And he is hungry. Seeing his hands propel himself with naked flesh, he moves to the surface, where on the boat above, he comes out of the water, snatching the back of an unsuspecting soul who is dragged beneath the waves. And he feeds. As his senses return to him, there in the water with a dead man in his arms, he hears again and feels the compulsion to find Romualdo. "Facio, come to me, my child."
Finishing his meal, Facio swims up to the surface, gathers his bearings, and sets off for Bologna. He must heed the call of his sire.
and heeding the call of his sire as he moves to the surface, he discovers the year of 1135. Over a century, as his name has fallen into obscurity, if not distant memory. In bewilderment, as he seizes a man into an alley, both to feed and to take his garments, choosing a man in green vestments which suit his tastes, he sees what used to be his family home. Come to me, Fazio. He resists the call of his sire long enough to investigate and interrogate. His mother and father, he learns, though it is difficult that to find out, were executed after being captured, declared traitors to Venice. His sisters were taken and sold as commodities into Eastern Europe. Fazio, come to me, my child. With tears of blood streaking his face, he abandons Venice, the city of his birth, the city which had been his home, the city in which he had earned name, wealth, station, the city of his most bitter memory, and joins his sire, not far from the city of Bologna, where he finds him with frightening ease. This is the story of the early life and unlife, soon to further unfold, of Fazio, Corvo della Guerra. Or should he so wish to do so, he may even call himself Fazio Lupino, child of Romualdo Lupino, who, taking his child long lost back into his service, guides him through the Agorge, allowing him to learn of the ways of the clan Ventru, the patrician. Been promising Fazio that if he lives up to the potential which he first observed back in Venice, Fazio will rise again. End for now.